One minute I'm fast asleep, recovering from a hangover on Christmas Day. The next minute I am underwater fighting for my life with no idea about what has happened. So I was fast asleep in my hut. I'd gone to visit my best friend who had a guest house on the east coast of Sri Lanka. I was asleep at the time of the tsunami and heard this kind of commotion outside, and all of a sudden the door flung open to the room that I was in, the hut that I was in, and within seconds I was underwater, drowning and fighting for my life. I had no clue as to what had happened. I was rolling around like a grain of rice in a washing machine. The water was pitch black, and it was a powerhouse of thundering water coming in. Honestly, I thought I was going to die in that hut. And one of the things that came to me was understanding that I didn't want to die. And this voice came to me and said, remember this moment, you do not want to die. And I fought tooth and nail to stay alive in that hut. But I had no clue as to which way was up or down. And I was completely disorientated until eventually the hut began to disintegrate and shards of light began to peek through, and I realized that I was upside down, and so reorientated myself the other way round, and eventually the hut was destroyed and I was washed inland with the tsunami. So as I was being swept along in the wave, I realised that there were dead bodies in the water next to me, and that whatever this catastrophe was, it was serious enough that people had died. And I realised that I needed to somehow stop, or otherwise I might meet the same fate as they did. I can't even describe how fast you're going and at the speed that things are happening. But I could see that the jungle was coming towards me. And as I could see that the jungle was coming towards me, I knew that I needed to somehow stop. Otherwise, I might get knocked unconscious and then I would drown like these poor people that were in the water with me. But I was very lucky, and I was thrown into the path of a tree, and I held on to that tree for dear life. The water still going over my head for most of it, but every now and again I was able to get a life-saving breath of air. Eventually, the tsunami got sucked back out to sea, and I made my way to my friends that I had seen standing on something as I was being swept inland with the tsunami. And by now the seafloor was full of broken glass, broken metal, shards of chicken wire all over the floor. So the journey to them was very painful and difficult. My arms had no strength in them from having held on to the tree. But eventually I made it to them, and my friend's boyfriend had a really bad injury on his arm. So he was insisting that we go back down to the beach to find a first aid kit, even though my friend was saying that there is no first aid kit. But we followed anyway because we were in shock and we couldn't fight back, and I didn't really care so long as I was with my friends. But as we were making our way back to the shore, suddenly started to hear screams once more and people running towards us. As we looked up, we saw another tsunami beginning to come back inland, and people shouting, water, water, water. And I don't know how, but we managed to turn around, and the adrenaline kicked in once more and started running for our lives back in the direction that we had come. We got very lucky, and a local person showed us the way to this mound, this invisible mound that appeared out of nowhere, that was high enough to be safe from the tsunami, but also gave you a great vantage point of what was going on. And it's one of the most chilling memories that I still have of the tsunami, where you can see the tsunami coming back in and all the people running like ants, and all of a sudden the wave coming back and them disappearing underneath. We realised after that that we couldn't go back to the beach, and we slowly made our way up to higher ground. Many survivors began to come up through the day, and as they came up through the day, we realised that the fifth wave had taken out the bridge that connected us to the mainland. So now we were in an island on an island, completely stranded from any potable water, food, or any way in or out. Shortly after, a jeep came up and I realised that, I needed to listen to the news to find out what had happened. And as I went to the jeep and started listening to the news and realised that this was something that was happening Asia-wide, I realised that we were not going to get rescued on this remote peninsula that we were in without getting international assistance and help. I don't know how, but I managed to remember the number of the BBC switchboard from when I'd worked there 5 years before as a BBC broadcast journalist. I managed to get through to the switchboard and got them to put me through to a journalist who I was able to say to call the British High Commission and to have us rescued. The High Commissioner called me back an hour later, but it was already too late to be rescued that day. But the choppers did come the following day, and I did my best to get people on in the order of the severity of their injuries. And eventually we were choppered to safety. I got a call from Nate, who I was the first person he'd seen when he had come to higher ground and had taken the last chopper out with me, and we travelled back to Colombo together and shared our mutual horror stories of what had happened. He called me to say that the Oprah Winfrey Show was doing a programme on the tsunami and he would love me to be a guest to talk about my story and to talk about how I'd had dozens of survivors airlifted to safety in the aftermath of the tsunami. It was also going to be for charity for that part of the country, and so that's why I decided to say yes. And as I was sitting on Oprah's couch, much like I am today, I said to her, I know that I must have been saved for a purpose. I don't know what that purpose is now, but I know that it will become clear as time goes on. Initially, my survivor guilt is what propelled me forward to find my purpose. And I said to Oprah, we need to make the most of our lives now that we've been given a second chance. We need to make our lives mean something and count for something. And that's what set me on my search for looking for this purpose. It first took me to the war in Iraq, to work for an NGO helping the people that were being displaced by the war. It then took me to work for one of the UK's largest charities as their head of projects. So I was diagnosed with cancer while I was still in my 30s, and that's when I realised that there was something that I wasn't properly looking at. And so I decided to leave work at that time and to focus on my health. And as I focused on my health, I really didn't want to do some conventional treatments such as chemo. So I was doing lots of things to help my mind, body and spirit. And whatever I was doing and whatever I was practicing, I then decided to do a qualification in it, whether it was yoga teaching, yoga therapy, meditation or mindfulness, Ayurveda, hypnotherapy, all of these things. And they were only to help myself and to heal myself at that time. People naturally started to gravitate to me for support and advice with all of the things that I had studied. I realised that the support that I was giving them was more helpful than therapists that they were working with, because they told me that. And that's when I had my light bulb moment of course, Annie, you survived a tsunami, you survived multiple cancer diagnoses and a stage 4 diagnosis, as well as so many other challenges in my life. It makes sense that you are here to help other people transform their lives. You're here to help other people and guide them through the challenges that they face so that they too know the how to make the changes that they need to make, to find the purpose that they really want to have and to find true meaning in their lives. So every day to now in my life, and for the last 7 years since I've been doing this, I wake up with joy in my step. I wake up knowing my mission and knowing what I'm here to do. This is my North Star. It gives me purpose. It gives me satisfaction. I feel peace and joy and contentment in my life 80% of the time these days, whereas in the past it was no percent of the time. Like most people, I was going through life and I felt like I was going through the motions of life. I had this sense of disconnect, this sense of there's got to be more to life than this, and a sense of malaise. So before the tsunami hit, I was just kind of plodding along and I was thinking, is this all there is to life? Get married, have a, go to school, go to college, get a degree, have a relationship, get married, have children, do a 9-to-5 job and then retire. And the feeling of that was creating this sense of despair within me. But now I have all of this joy, this, when you're really impacting for me, when I'm really impacting someone's life, making a difference even to you, listening to this, that brings me such an immense amount of satisfaction and joy. And I want you to feel that too. Everyone can have the life that they really, truly want. Everyone can have joy and peace and freedom and purpose in everything that they do. And that's what I want to help you. I want to inspire you to be able to do for yourself.